She's not who you think she is. Not every danger wears a mask of cruelty. Some come wrapped in silk with eyes that glisten and a voice that soothes like lullabies whispered in the dark. And that is precisely what makes her so dangerous. Carl. Jung warned us, not with sirens but with symbols. He spoke of the anima, the feminine archetype dwelling within every man. When undeveloped, she distorts reality. When projected outward, she blinds. And in her most toxic form, she becomes a mirror, reflecting not who she is but who you desperately want her to be. You call her dream girl. Jung called her a fragment of your unconscious. She appears when you're most lost, most disconnected from your inner compass. She offers you light not because she is luminous, but because you have fallen into darkness, and like a moth to flame you confuse the heat of infatuation with the warmth of love. But the flame does not care if you burn. Ask yourself, why do you always fall for the same type? The one who praises your potential but vanishes when you're weak. The one who listens just enough to echo your thoughts, but never enough to understand them. The one who offers you heaven but only as bait. She's not the enemy. She's the manifestation of your unmet needs, your buried wounds, your lack of wholeness. And the more unaware you are of your inner world, the more power her image will have over your life, because this isn't about her, it's about you. The woman Jung warned about isn't one person. She's an archetype. And the reason most men ignored him is because to see her clearly, you'd have to confront what she represents, your own disowned soul. But what happens when that illusion shatters? What happens when the mask slips, and you realize the danger wasn't outside, it was always inside? The answer lies deeper, much deeper. You thought she betrayed you, but betrayal only occurs when there's trust. And what you had was projection. You didn't see her, you saw yourself through her. The version of you you hoped was real, strong, desired, rescued, whole. She was never the siren, she was the mirror. Jung wrote that what we reject in ourselves returns through others. This is not metaphor, it's law. The unconscious compensates. Always. What you repress becomes your fate. And so the woman who hurt you was not random. She was summoned. But summoned by what? By the emptiness you pretend not to feel. By the boy inside you who never heard "I'm proud of you." By the man who performs masculinity like a role. Terrified someone will peek behind the curtain. That. Fear becomes hunger. And that hunger has a taste. Soft voices, fragile bodies, the illusion of safety. She feels like salvation because she promises to complete you. But what kind of man needs to be completed? You weren't seduced by her body. You were seduced by your own disconnection. The further you drift from your soul, the more intoxicating her presence becomes. And then you blame her for the crash, as if the wave is at fault for your refusal to learn how to swim. This is the trap. And every generation of men falls into it, because we're trained to look outward, conquer, possess, fix. We are not trained to look inward, to feel, to integrate. And that's the real seduction, the avoidance of self. She's not your enemy, but she's not your healer either. She is the test, the archetypal gatekeeper of your evolution, and every time you chase her without facing yourself, the pattern deepens, the wound festers, and your psyche fractures just a little more. You want to escape her. Then stop chasing. Stop blaming. Stop pretending you don't know why you keep ending up here, because the one you're running from isn't her, it's you, and he's still waiting beneath the ruins for you to return. You saw darkness in her, and you were right. But what you didn't see is that it was your own. Carl Jung called it the shadow, the parts of yourself you've exiled into the unconscious. Rage, neediness, vulnerability, manipulation, the emotions you weren't allowed to feel. The truths you were taught to bury, the instincts you were forced to amputate to survive. But the psyche doesn't delete, it stores, and everything you reject returns in distorted form. The more you disown your own darkness, the more it leaks into your life through others, especially through her. You notice the manipulation, the coldness, the way she knew exactly how to touch your insecurities. And you thought, she's a monster. But the monster was always inside you, starving, unacknowledged, shackled in the basement of your mind, clawing its way to the surface. And when you met her, she gave it permission to speak. That's what makes her dangerous. Not because she created the chaos, but because she revealed it. And you wanted to believe in the fantasy, the light, the beauty, the connection. You needed her to save you from yourself. But the feminine isn't your savior. She is the catalyst, and when the shadow isn't faced, it possesses. Possession doesn't look like spinning heads or ancient curses. It looks like obsessive thoughts. Emotional addiction, a rage you can't explain, a need for her approval that humiliates you. It's the quiet voice that whispers, "Without her I am nothing." That voice is not hers, it's yours, twisted by years of unconscious suppression. You don't need revenge, you need recognition, because once you see her for what she is, an echo, a mirror, a guide, the spell breaks. But only if you're willing to see the one truth most men will spend their entire lives avoiding. She didn't steal your power. You gave it to her, and now you must take it back. But to reclaim your power, you must confront what you've always feared most, the truth about yourself. You keep telling yourself you're a good man, but what does that even mean? Is it obedience, politeness, self-restraint? You've spent your life trying to be the good guy and the one who doesn't make waves, who doesn't get angry, who earns love by staying quiet and agreeable. But beneath that mask, there's rot, because that goodness was never yours. It was installed by culture, by broken families, by systems that reward passivity and punish authenticity. You were taught to be good, not real. And so you became a cardboard version of yourself, afraid to speak, afraid to feel, afraid to want. Jung called it the persona, the social mask we wear to be accepted. But masks don't just hide us from others, they hide us from ourselves. And she didn't fall in love with the real you, she fell in love with the mask. But no mask can love or be loved. That's why you feel hollow. That's why she left. That's why every relationship ends the same, with you confused, abandoned, asking, "What did I do wrong?" But the better question is, who was I pretending to be? Because the nice guy isn't harmless, he's dishonest, repressed, internally boiling with needs he refuses to admit. And eventually, all that suppressed rage leaks out. In silence, in passive aggression, in emotional withdrawal, in resentment that poisons everything it touches. You think being good protects you, but what it really does is paralyze you. And here's the terrifying truth. Until you kill the good man inside you, the performative, obedient, approval-seeking puppet, you will never become a real man. A real man is not nice. He is whole. He has integrated his anger, his sexuality, his grief, his darkness. He doesn't seek permission to exist. He knows who he is and who he is not. So stop asking how to be loved. Ask how to be real. Because the man who lives for love will always be manipulated. But the man who lives in truth cannot be moved. You think love is supposed to feel safe, warm, comforting, familiar, like a home you never had but always longed for. But what if I told you that what you call love is actually a trauma echo? Jung warned us. The unconscious seeks what it needs for wholeness, not what feels good. And if your childhood was a minefield of unmet needs, silence, manipulation, or conditional affection, then guess what your psyche calls home? Pain, not because it wants to suffer, but because it's trying to resolve the wound. So when she shows up cold one moment and tender the next, withholding then seductive, unpredictable, and intoxicating, your soul lights up like it's found salvation, but it hasn't. It's found the familiar, and you confuse familiarity with destiny. That's why it hurts so deeply when she leaves. Not just because you miss her, but because she reawakened the part of you that still believes love must be earned through suffering, that if you just prove yourself, stay loyal, stay patient, she will finally choose you. But real love doesn't demand self-abandonment. Real love doesn't exploit your wounds. It reveals them. And if she vanishes the moment you stop performing, that wasn't love. That was dependency. It's time to ask the question no one wants to ask. What if the people you love the most are just the ones who resemble your original wound? Because that wound has a flavor, a rhythm, a scent. And when someone carries it, your soul recognizes it, not with joy but with urgency. You don't want love, you want redemption. You want someone to finally give you the acceptance you're inner. Child never received. But until you give that to yourself, you will keep choosing women who rip the scab off your heart and call it passion. Love is not supposed to complete you. It's supposed to meet you, and you cannot be met. If you are not home in yourself, so come home, or prepare to lose yourself again. You weren't meant to worship her, you were meant to learn from her. But that's not what men are taught. From movies, myths, and mother wounds, you were trained to place her on a pedestal. The sacred feminine, the missing piece, the divine source of your meaning. You turned her into a goddess because you never learned how to be whole without her. And what happens when you worship what you don't understand? You become a servant to your projections. Jung warned of the danger of the anima when left unconscious. She becomes not a guide but a seductress, not a soul companion, but a parasite feeding on your unintegrated hunger. And in your desperate longing for union, you confuse dependence with love and fantasy with truth. This is why your relationships keep collapsing. You don't see her. Not really. You see what she could be if only she stayed. If only she healed. If only she gave you the one thing you refuse to give yourself, inner peace. But here's the truth no man wants to hear. She is not here to fix you. She is not your savior. She is your mirror. And the moment you stop idealizing her, you start learning from her. That's when the real alchemy begins, because the feminine is not soft. She is chaotic, instinctual, mysterious. She brings life and death. She awakens you through heartbreak. She challenges your ego through rejection. She tears down your illusions so something deeper can be born. She's not asking you to become her prisoner. She's demanding you become her equal. And you can't do that while living in fear of losing her, or bending your identity just to keep her close. You must stand in your center, not as her worshipper but as your own man. The moment you stop chasing her light and face your own darkness, something shifts. You stop being intoxicated, and you start being initiated, because she wasn't the prize. She was the path, and now that you see it, will you keep repeating the cycle or will you finally walk it? You've never been taught how to be a man. Not really. What you were taught was a performance: wear strength like armor, suppress emotion like poison, chase success like salvation. You were handed blueprints written by broken fathers, absent leaders, and societies that fear male depth. And so you became what they needed, not what you are, but something inside you always knew that lifting weights and chasing women wasn't the same as having purpose. That domination isn't the same as clarity. That being feared isn't the same as being respected. You knew, but there was no one to confirm it. So you drifted. And in that drift, you clung to her. Because if you didn't know who you were, maybe her validation could tell you. Maybe her affection could prove your worth. Maybe her approval could replace the father who never looked you in the eye and said, "You're enough." But dependence is not masculinity. It's inertia. It's stagnation, dressed as loyalty. And no woman, no matter how loving, beautiful, or divine, can initiate you into manhood. Only pain can do that. Only death. Death of the false self. Death of the boy waiting for permission. Death of the mask you built to survive. Jung wrote, "That individuation, becoming your true self, requires the confrontation of all you are and all you've denied. And there is no guidebook, no applause, no safe route. You must walk it alone." That's why most men never do it. They'd rather stay in the loop, chase her, lose her, blame her, repeat. Because pain is familiar. Accountability is not. But if you choose to stay here as in the hollow shell of half-lived masculinity, then understand this: you will never feel whole. You will never be seen. Not because women can't see you, but because you refuse to. Stand where you can be seen. You are not a boy anymore. No one is coming to teach you how to be a man. You must become your own master, or remain a servant to the silence. You think you're avoiding pain, but what you're really avoiding is power. Because power doesn't come from pretending to be healed. It doesn't come from reading books or quoting philosophy. Real power the kind that steadies your voice and sharpens your presence, comes from one place only: integration of your shadow. And that's exactly what you've been running from. Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." That means every broken relationship, every silent addiction, every woman who triggered your obsession, they weren't accidents. They were assignments designed by your own psyche to wake you up, but you didn't wake up. You rationalized, you blamed, you numbed. You called her toxic, called yourself the victim, called your breakdown a phase. And every time you did that, you buried the shadow deeper, made it hungrier, more cunning, more dangerous. Because the shadow doesn't vanish when you ignore it. It evolves, it becomes your passive aggression, your compulsive need for approval, your jealousy masked as romantic loyalty, your avoidance dressed as stoicism, your self-pity parading as emotional depth. It mimics maturity while sabotaging every chance at truth, and the longer you avoid it, the more seductive the illusion becomes. You start calling dysfunction love. You start calling pain passion. You start craving the woman who breaks you, because she gives your shadow a place to feed. But here's the brutal truth. The pain you're running from is the key to your freedom, not by reliving it, but by owning it. You were hurt. You were neglected. You were lied to. So what? You are not here to stay broken. You are here to remember, because beneath the shadow is your fire, your clarity, your boundaries, your masculine soul waiting to be unchained. But you'll never access it if you keep hiding behind victimhood, behind fake humility, behind your need to be seen as good. You don't need to be seen as good, you need to be whole. So stop running and go to the place you fear the most, because that's where your power lives. You've blamed her long enough. But let's ask the question you've been avoiding. Who gave her that power over you? You did, not with words, with silence, with every moment you ignored, your instincts to keep the peace, with every truth you swallowed so she wouldn't leave, with every boundary you dissolved, because being wanted felt safer than being real. But behind that passivity is something darker, something even more manipulative than the woman you call toxic. It's the inner tyrant. Not loud, not violent, subtle, rational, always whispering, "Don't speak up, don't show weakness, don't demand more, she'll leave, they'll judge you, you'll be alone." The inner tyrant doesn't scream, he convinces. He keeps you small by pretending to protect you. But his protection has a price: your authenticity. Jung spoke of the dangers of identifying with the persona, that false self we construct to gain approval. Over time, that mask fuses to your skin. You forget who you are underneath. And the tyrant thrives in that forgetfulness. He doesn't want you empowered. He wants you liked. He trades your soul for social acceptance. And when a woman reflects your unconscious submission, when she manipulates, controls, or withdraws, it isn't just about her. It's the tyrant playing both sides. Sabotaging your freedom, then convincing you it was all her fault. This is how men become prisoners in their own minds, wearing smiles that don't belong to them, chasing relationships that only validate their emptiness, losing themselves not to women, but to the illusion that love means self-erasure. But here's the truth. The tyrant cannot be negotiated with. He must be dethroned, and that requires a confrontation most men avoid their entire lives, the one where you look in the mirror and ask, "Who would I be without my fear?" The answer will terrify you. It will also liberate you, because once you silence the tyrant, you'll hear something else. The voice you buried, the fire you forgot, the man you were always meant to be. You've come this far, but before you leave, something in you must die, not the boy, not the man, but the illusion that healing will come from her, from comfort, from time, from anything outside you. That illusion is your prison, and until you burn it down, you will return here again and again. Jung didn't promise peace. He promised transformation. And transformation is war, a war between who you are and who you pretend to be, between the soul and the mask, between the self and the shadow. You cannot integrate what you refuse to face, so face it. Face the parts of you that wanted to be chosen more than respected. That stayed silent when your heart screamed. That confused pain with meaning and manipulation with love. Face the woman you turned into your salvation. Not to blame her, but to see the role you wrote for her. You never needed her to rescue you, you needed her to betray you, so you could finally confront what you've abandoned in yourself. The wound was the doorway, the heartbreak was the message, the chaos was the call to initiation. Now answer it, strip off the persona, dethrone the tyrant. Hold the shadow in your hands and say, I see you, I own you, you are me, but you do not control me. This is not about becoming better. This is about becoming whole. The woman was never the test. You were, and now, you've passed it. Not because you found peace, but because you stopped running, so what now? Now you return to the world, not as a boy chasing love, or a mask chasing approval, but as a man. Awake. Rooted. Dangerous in his truth. And finally, free.